Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started today. Good afternoon, everyone, and morning for some of you who are joining us. I think we're having a few more people that are logging in, but I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Lisa Puri. I'm with Love & Company, and welcome to the new Senior Living Sales Cycle Explained, our webinar for today, how to use digital tools to compete in 2021, which is right around the corner. Just a few housekeeping items before we get into introductions and the meat of our presentation. Of course, our webinar is being recorded today. A common question we receive is, will we be able to share this? Absolutely. After the webinar, the recording will be shared with all participants who attended as well as registered, so no fear about that. Just a couple of things. Everyone who's participating today has been brought in on mute, as typical with webinars. But we do have a function that at the end we'll be taking questions. And so in your GoToWebinar panel, you'll see a place where you can type in a question. You click send. It'll then pop up into this window for all of our panelists to see. And I will be moderating that discussion. So our plan for today, we're going to go through and do some introductions here in a moment. And then I'll start with talking a little bit about setting the stage. What has changed in 2020, which I know, of course, is kind of the question of the year. And then we'll, just to make sure we're all on the same page, we're going to talk a little bit about what is marketing automation. Then we're going to get into the meat of our discussion, talking about the digital funnel, nurturing leads, capturing information on them, and information gathering, all and how that connects with the new sales cycle. And of course, we'll be allowing for time for Q&A at the end. So going into some formal introductions, again, my name is Lisa Puri. I'm one of the principals of Love & Company and the Chief Client Services Officer, and I lead the team that develops the marketing strategy and sales oversight for our clients. So very pleased to be with you today and incredibly honored to be joined by this panel of very smart, accomplished women. I learn so much every time we go through this content, and I'm so excited to share this with all of you today. So if we could go ahead and do introductions. Erin, why don't you lead us off?
Hi, I'm Erin Hayes. I'm the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Inquire. I oversee sales and marketing.
Casey, you're on mute, which is the quote of the year, right?
You know what? I really just wanted to make sure we all had an opportunity to drop that joke. So my name is Casey Reaver. So thanks for joining us. I'm the content marketing director for Love & Company.
And I'm Clara Daly. I'm the interactive communications director. So I do a lot of the website building and building all the bridges and connections that help facilitate what we'll be talking about today.
And I'm Joan Kelly Kincaid. I'm one of the senior sales advisors with Love & Company.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. And we'll go ahead and move on. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about setting the stage. So what has changed? Why are we having this conversation? And one of the key things is that our prospects now more than ever are online. They are behaving like younger generations as far as how they're engaging with digital marketing and how they're using video conference tools. And this data that we have here from some research that we did is very telling, that about a third of respondents were using video conference tools before the stay at home. But what's remarkable is now more than half have jumped on board and have started using these tools since the stay-at-home order. So that has huge implications for our field and really the basis for the conversation that we're having today. In addition, what we're also seeing is communities at various stages of sales are making sales. They are connecting with prospects online. They are making sales online. Just a couple of quick examples. The Baldwin is a Blue Sky project in New Hampshire. Their sister community, Edgewood, is in North Andover, Massachusetts. They launched their formal priority deposit program in mid-April. At that point, the Welcome Center was closed, the sales staff was working from home, they had no in-person appointments or events all the way through June. digital, direct mail in combination, we're filling virtual events, we're getting the phone to ring for the sales team, and the sales team has been making those connections and holding virtual appointments. And webinar attendees, we're not only attending in great numbers, but also are making deposits even right in the middle of the event, which is really exciting. And through just a couple of days ago, having an update that they're making really strong progress with their priority deposit program, despite it being completely virtual to this point. Another community in a different phase of an expansion project, Pennyburn, is in High Point, North Carolina. They're building some additional residences to complement their existing independent living offerings, and they've enjoyed a strong census and have maintained that entirely through COVID. What's more, they began their 10% conversions for their expansion the first full week of March. By the end of that week, the community had closed, the sales team started working from home. They have conducted their entire conversion phase, all their appointments remotely, and to date, they're about 80% reserved, and all during the COVID time and completely handling that virtually. So that's really exciting. Now, for you, those communities that are not in some type of expansion or blue sky situation, there's success there as well. Blue Skies of Texas, that's in San Antonio, they are an existing campus, actually a double campus. They're having really strong success with webinar events. Not only do they have a lot of registrants, but having close to a 60% attendance rate. And that's something we look at about how many percentage of people actually come to the event after signing up. But what's exciting is some highlights from this particular example. They've received a full 10% deposit right after a webinar. They had a couple join the wait list. They had people who watched the webinar, scheduled tours, and in fact had a prospect who on his first visit to Blue Skies paid his full entrance fee and moved in 3 weeks later. So the point being with all of this is communities are having success. Organizations in the senior living and services field are having success with connecting with leads and making sales online. And that's really the impetus for our conversation today. So Joan, I'm gonna actually turn it over to you and ask you to talk us through a little bit more about, so what are the implications on the sales cycle?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Well, things are a little bit different now. And we'll start by looking at the funnel. We all know what a funnel is. There are a couple of words I want to focus on: directly and intentionally. And that's how a funnel works. And that's what we're going to talk about today, about how to make it more direct and more intentional. And also this idea that it's a series of steps. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes a little bit more. So you can see when you look at this that a traditional funnel and a digital funnel look a lot alike. They both use multi-channel approaches. They both, involve a lot of nurturing. One is more linear, the other tends to be more circular. And even in these other areas, there are a lot of differences. And we should look at that because, as Lisa said, people are doing things differently today. And some of you may have begun to use comprehensive digital funnels. Others are thinking about it. So let's take a look at how this works and why it's different. So as I said, a traditional funnel tends to be linear. And so we're going to start out with lead generation. Certainly we're familiar with traditional lead generation, direct mail, print ads. Events are related to that because people have their awareness and their opinion grow during events. And certainly we all have websites, and that is indeed a little bit of venturing into the digital realm in a traditional funnel. The thing about it though, even though learning starts there, it doesn't mean that nurturing starts on a website. And nurturing is really important. Most of the nurturing in a traditional funnel doesn't happen until the prospect reaches out and touches us. That happens, as you can see, pretty far down in the funnel. It's almost to the end before we get to meet our prospect. That's an interesting difference. This means a lot of touches, a lot of connections by the salesperson. It means a lot of effort and a lot of time have to be put in. And that's a huge difference between what we're going to look at next and a traditional funnel. In a digital funnel, as I said earlier, it tends to be circular. You still start with that awareness building and exposure at around 12 o'clock. But you'll see that there are multiple numbers of ways you can do it. And in fact, there are more ways than we see here. You don't have to do all of them. That's the joy of digital. It can be customized in a lot of ways. But here are some examples. And again, discovery, awareness, nurturing start. But what I want to point out is this nurturing is happening before the salesperson and the prospect connect. We don't even know this person and they're being nurtured. This means there's another cycle here. In that northeast quadrant, if you will, of our slide, there's a cycle that is occurring between lead generation and nurturing. One is feeding the other. Excuse me. That means it's generative. One makes the other happen. And it's also iterative, which means it's not static. It learns as it goes. It means future lead generation is actually smarter than early lead generation. And that's a huge benefit because when the person shows up at the prospect store or at their phone or in their inbox, they are already pre-screened. They are happy to be there. They usually know what they want. It's a win-win for everyone. And that's a big difference between a prospect that came in a digital cycle versus a project that came through a funnel or a cycle that was more traditional. Additionally, it means referrals and retentions are usually higher with a digital cycle. These people are happy. They're satisfied with the experience. They directed the experience. That's why the prospect is in the middle. Don't forget, it wasn't a prospect directed process in a traditional funnel. This is prospect directed. They learn on their own. They nurture back and forth in the digital world, and they present to us well-informed and ready to talk seriously. So that's a big difference as well. What does that mean at the end of the day? The difference is the tipping point. The marketing qualified lead and the sales qualified lead, that transition occurs much earlier in a digital cycle. And that's huge. That means a lot in terms of time. For example, Baldwin, that Lisa referred to earlier, found that the, let's make sure I get this right for you, the internet produced leads closed 35% faster than the direct mail produced leads. That means they received priority deposits within 11 days instead of 17 days for direct mail. So that's huge, and that's what's happening here. It's a tipping point that is measurable, and that means time and effort and contact management is all affected in a positive way. Here are some takeaways for us to think about. A digital funnel casts a broader net. It means we'll get more people under our umbrella, but only the most interested people come through the funnel. That's hugely important, and it happens because we're able to focus the funnel on what matters most to the consumer. This means they may close sooner. This means they may be happier. This means that the people that show up are actually very well informed. And that means the nurturing process is different even when they show up at our front door or on our phone. It's collaborative. The salespeople and the marketing people work together on this, primarily, as Erin's going to show us, through the CRM. And it's also automated. We couldn't do all of this if it wasn't automated. And I think that's what we're going to learn more about next.
Great. So Clara, if hopefully the transitions will work, but if you can speak to us about the definition of marketing automation before we get into some more additional details. There we go. It's working.
Yay.
Technology works for us.
So I think this is an important item to kind of clarify before we continue getting into this. You're hearing a lot of different terms. I'm sure everyone to some degree is familiar with the term marketing automation, but what does it actually mean? And what does it actually mean, particularly as it comes to senior living? So it's going to be a mix of different tools that you are going to use. Now, this mix is going to be different for every community, depending on your budget, depending on your CRM, depending on what you're trying to achieve. It's going to be an aggregation of your CRM. It's going to be your email platform. It's going to be in combination with your website. Maybe you're going to use a chat bot. Maybe you're going to integrate texting that then feeds back into your CRM. The biggest takeaway is that it's no one item. And it's important to know that there's no magic bullet here. There's no necessarily right way. There's no out-of-the-box solution that's going to be able to cover everything you need. And the tools alone aren't going to make your automation. They're going to provide the basis for when you're going to set up your workflows, your strategy, your content. It's going to be the workhorse that gives your sales team more time to actually focus on people while actually targeting as best you can and segmenting your prospects and delivering messages that are important to them. That being said, while that's a lot of what marketing automation is, there's something that it's not. It's not going to be removing your salespeople from actually developing that one-on-one personal connection with people. We know that a lot of the leads that are coming in digitally these days, they want to keep you at arm's length for a bit. They want to educate themselves, pre-qualify themselves to some degree. And I know that's a little daunting. That's kind of changing what we traditionally think of as how sales work. However, with all of the information out there right now, you're not the only person or the only community likely in someone's shortlist. So if you're being too cagey with your information, if you're not putting out there as much as you can, but your competitor is, you're far more likely to end up with that prospect going to them. If you're not quickly returning, a phone call or an email or answering about pricing or availability or wait list, again, they have 7 others lined up that maybe do have these automations in place that are answering these questions. You can go online at 3 a.m. and talk to a chatbot and get some responses. You're not waiting on someone else. You're potentially falling behind. So another thing marketing automation is doing is moving someone further along at their comfort level. So by the time they do speak to a counselor, they're warmed up, they're ready, they're able to ask more focused questions and take the next steps. So they might take a little longer to warm up, but when they do contact, they tend to convert a lot faster. And there's also a number of different ways to do marketing automation. You can do it fairly simply. The next slide will show you a more complicated setup. And what's really great is it's iterative. This isn't really a set it and forget it. I know it kind of sounds like it might be evergreen. Once we set all of this up, we're good forever. We can just let it run in the background. You want to be revisiting it, I would say at least quarterly. You want to be looking at your content. You want to be looking at the metrics of what's resonating with people and what isn't. You want to be learning from that and building on it. Because also these things are going to change maybe season by season, month by month, year by year. The keywords that you want to use around the holidays are probably going to be different than summertime. What's going to resonate with one community in a more metropolitan area is probably going to be different for someone more rural. And one of the great things about digital is you're provided all of these tools, so long as you take the time to look these things over and pretty nimbly respond to them and adjust things and do tests. So all of these, I want to make clear, are a great set of tools, but it's still very much a strategy-based decision. And you're still, at the end of the day, if you have a successful conversion, passing this off to your sales team so they have a well-warmed up person ready to talk to them. So how are we getting those people there? As Joan mentioned, the digital funnel is a little different to the traditional funnel, though a lot of the venues are the same. The main thing to know, one path. We can't say someone's just going to find your website, fill out a form, and we're good to go. It's still probably going to be online that someone ends up finding you, even if they received a direct mail, if they saw a TV spot, if they saw a billboard, they're going to research you. So that means they're going to Google, they're going to Bing, they're going to put in your community name. What's going to turn up? You want to be in as absolute much of control of what's going to turn up on that search term as you can. What do your reviews look like? Have you claimed your Google My Business? Is your location and phone number correct on there? Do you have nice high quality photos? All of that is in your control. And then if someone does go to your website, which hopefully is listed, what do they do next? Is it just a big amalgam of information with no clear path telling them to read this for floor plans and then contact us for a tour? Is there a clear direction focusing that user journey? Is there then forms for them to fill so we can get them into our nurture series, know that they were on the floor plans page, and give them a drip specifically about the residences? What are they going to see when they look us up? So since people are going to be searching you, even if you're reaching out to them in traditional means, that digital presence still comes to be incredibly important, and you really want to focus on making sure it's exactly what you want it to be on the other end. So here's a little more of a breakdown of the digital funnel. I'm not going to read all of this to you. What's important to know is that the items of exposure, discovery, and consideration are often can be cycled through. So someone might not know until they search you and are turned up an ad that you also offer X or Y, that you also have villas in addition to apartments, and that's going to cause them to do additional discovery. Then that you want to make sure that information is available to them. So it's not like they're going to go through this directly. They're potentially going to cycle through it until they feel like they have enough information on their own end that they're willing to contact someone. And that's why you want to be plotting out multiple different paths. If they go to this page, are they then going to be served up this remarketing ad? If they click on this email that was about this particular item, what am I going to follow up with next? So multiple different organic entry points. And organic means someone's in complete control. We don't control what they search. We don't control what's turning up on the other end beyond what we can put there. And these are different ways to do it. Link building means if you have any sort of partnership in the community, if you're paired with a hospital, a local community organization, a church, anything like that, whenever you interact, ask for PR online, cross-link to each other. It's one of the easiest ways to get really good, strong SEO. It's going to raise your search rankings, and it's also just going to build how people feel about you. You're not just talking about yourselves, you're pairing with partners in the community. It's kind of like outreach. Google search for educating topics. Sometimes you're going to find someone because you're being geo-targeted, but also they're answering a question out there in the community that no one else is willing to answer. That's a really great way to build trust passively and to get someone to remember your name. You were there for them when they needed you. And Google My Business, that's the little thing that shows up in the side when you search anything. It has images, it has links, it has the website, phone number, active times. You can manage that. You want to manage that. It's where your reviews are, and reputation management can make you or break you. Think about the last time you even bought an inexpensive item under $20. You probably looked it up, and you probably got served up alternates. Like, that's one of the things that digital is really great at, and you really want to focus on it. You want to aggregate those reviews, respond to negative ones. Like, this is the world we're in, and people are reading them. They might not even pass go if they see you have too many negative reviews and you have strong competitors in the area. They're not even going to call you. And paid entry. Paid entry is when we have money behind it. So it can be Google text ads, it can be banner ads, when you go to the Weather Channel. This follows around your behavior online. So we can know someone searched this and we bid on it, and now they're going to see our ad. They landed on our website and didn't convert, but we don't want them to forget about us. We're going to follow them on Facebook. We're going to follow them on Google. We're going to encourage them to take that step to fill out a form so we can enter them into our nurture system and continue to move them along. Paid entry is also great if maybe you don't have a strong brand, you've had such a great wait list and all of this that you've leaned on traditional for a long time, and maybe you're kind of falling behind. Maybe people don't know your name in the community. Paid is a great way to kind of get yourselves out there in front of people again and start to kind of build that outreach. Your sales team is going to get people coming in, even though they're keeping them at arm's length, that are educated now. You've put the information out there. You've told them what a life plan community is. You've told them what your assisted living terms and conditions and dining and amenities are like. They feel comfortable now being able to take that next step and ask you more detailed questions. They don't want to pick up the phone to hear the super basics. They want to be able to do that on their own. And so this, I know, a little daunting, but it's putting the power in other people's hands. It's letting them drive the bus. If you put a comment field on the form, we have found people will give you their life story. They maybe don't want to give you their phone number right away, but they're going to tell you what area they're in. They're going to tell you, you know, what size pet they have and what sort of view they want. They want to talk to you. They just want to do it in a way that they're comfortable with before kind of moving that relationship forward. So marketing automation and all of these tools out there really empowers the prospect to feel that they are controlling that situation, but ultimately is beneficial for your community too, so long as you're managing the information out there, so long as you're being receptive to having these leads come in that aren't going to answer a phone right away. You'll often see when they do convert, it's going to be faster. And the last thing I want to add for digital, because it's one of the great things it does, tracking. You can check who opened what email. You can check what page of their website they've been on. You can see where your keywords aren't working. Use digital as best you can because it's how you're going to make everything stronger. And it can also inform sales. All of that information, those comments they wrote about their 20-pound dog, that can be pushed into the CRM before you ever talk to them. So when you do, you actually have a far better idea of this person who is just some anonymous person on the internet when they're finally ready to speak to you.
All right, Casey, we'll go ahead and turn things over to you to take us further down into the funnel or around the circle, as it would. Thanks.
Yeah, so let's talk about nurturing. You know, I would say, going back to what Joan and Clara were saying, this is really the phase where they are in that circular space for a period of time. So this is where they are learning and gathering information. You know, going back to what we said, the great myth and the truth. It is a myth that digital leads are, well, perhaps not a myth that they're less desirable, but they shouldn't be, because they actually have so many great qualities about them. Like we've been saying, they are well researched, they are often busy, they're the go-getters, they're shy, they're tech savvy, and they are waiting for you to introduce yourselves and nurture them. And I kind of just want to go back to, you know, bring us back, if we could, to any type of like big life decision that we had to make, be it, you know, planning a wedding, planning our children's wedding, going to college, helping our kids go to college. You know, it all started with a search and a research phase. And once you made that jump, right, and I would define nurturing beginning as once someone can have an intentional touch point sent your way. So once you've made that jump, that nurturing starts. And if you've gone through that phase before, you know that you are typically met with phone calls and text messages and emails. And while I certainly don't want to minimize the effectiveness of those things, especially text messaging, you know, we're going to find that it's really going to be the emails in your nurture series, as well as your social presence, and as Clara was saying, certainly the reviews, that are going to offer an opportunity to connect. So let's just get into what, you know, defining lead nurturing on a broader scale. I'm going to say that's your long game. It's your long game in that period of time that you are just slow dripping education and information that is informed by things that they have expressed interest in before. And it is going to be that phase that you really break down who your community is, what your community offers, what your spirit is, why they should choose you, and you're educating them along the way. As Clara mentioned, you're not gating that information, but you do want to drip it strategically. So let's get into what that is going to look like. I know one of the biggest questions is, where do I start? You know, you might hear what Clara and Joan had to say, and it's so overwhelming because the limit doesn't exist when it comes to how you can use these things. But I included this slide really so that it could break down for you all what you're going to need, kind of in this more granular way. You're just going to need some content. You're going to need some emails, so you're going to need a way to send them. And a social presence is, of course, going to be important, but we're really going to focus on the emails for this. Those emails and those communications, you want them to brand your community. You want them to communicate your offerings. You want them to offer the opportunity to engage. So visit our Facebook page, visit our webinar, sign up here. You want those opportunities, and you want the opportunity to connect. And I put in brackets another, because you know, when we talked about that initial nurture phase of getting those phone calls and those text messages, that's critical. It is important for the sales team to be visible and approachable that entire time. So although they might not connect, it is helpful to know that they're there and available to connect when they are ready. All right, and so here's where we want to talk about the importance of partnering with your sales team. So before we get into how we build out the content and how we use the content that's going to be used in all of the fancy ways that Clara was describing, and as of course we know Erin will get in even more detail, you want to make sure you're offering the right information and what it is that people are really seeking. So I always say, first things first, partner with the sales team. What are people asking? What is it that you're struggling with when it comes to connecting people? So that's really going to be the springboard for a successful nurture program, is to partner with the sales team, identify what the barriers are so that any touch point can lean into those barriers.
Is it moving for you? Is it stuck?
It looks like it's stuck, but let's try one more time.
Let me see if I can't move it. How's that?
Yay, great.
Teamwork.
So, yay. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that we really just crystallize this point. The frequently asked questions. If you don't know where else to start, go there. Partner with the sales team, like we were saying. What are the frequently asked questions that people are bringing to the table? List them out, and then you can kind of break out different ways to package those. And we can put in a text message, we can put that in an email, you can start answering that on social. You can have an entire webinar dedicated to 3 of them, an entire webinar dedicated to 1. And as you start to build these things out, then you start to grow your archive of content that ultimately answers all of these high-level questions. And I'm going to jump to the next slide now, because I want to get into this complicated, but very exciting graphic here. We talked about A/B testing and making sure that you are using information that informs the next touch point. So here we can see that you might have a landing page, and that could be a paid landing page, but I also want to stress that that could be just a page on your site. Every page on your website should work for you. It should have a form, an opportunity to connect, and as we were saying before, a trackable piece to it. So if somebody fills out a form on a site or on a web page that was offering information about a life plan community, we know that that person needs that type of education. So we're going to send them down that track of the email series built to answer that question. Now that email series might actually contain the same emails downflow that are included in the other, but the order in which they appear is going to differ based on what we're learning they need. And so at the top level, we might just have what is a life plan community, strategically more down funnel, however many touch points or time that may be in your specific logic. We might start to drop things like what is the deposit process like? You know, we might start to get more in depth of cost and things like that, because this person still needs more information. So, you know, you start to build that out, and then all of the links there in that third column, that's when you say, okay, these are all the links that we have that drive to information to teach about our community. What are they clicking? Hey Joan, these 5 people clicked about floor plans. Let's make sure we send them another email and touch base with them about that. If that can be automated with if-then statements, great. But don't be intimidated by that. And don't let a fancy system, you know, the fancy systems are fantastic, and obviously we can't minimize their power and use, but there's definitely value also in having a templated email to say, hey, we know what happened in these emails. Let me just send these people a personal email and maybe customize it to this person. And so, you know, there are a number of ways to use this information. And so I like to stress that as we talk about automation systems, because they can be intimidating and exciting and powerful, but there's a lot you can do manually too. And you know, just to say as well, we do have a mock template of what the ideal series might be if you were building one out for email. So if anyone's interested in that, just drop us a message and we would be happy to get that over for you. So measuring success, I definitely want to stress that with an email series and even a nurture program that extends beyond email, so might also use text messaging or social triggers, or I'm sorry, social touch points, you never want to set it and forget it. Those should definitely be evaluated every quarter as well. And you want to see, you know, especially as you're producing new content, you might have a new webinar. And so let's weave that webinar into email too, because what a perfect opportunity. So you want to make sure you are evaluating those, looking for opportunities to improve. If one has a subject line that's perhaps underperforming, improve that, see what can be switched around. Other than that, the typical KPIs would apply, the open rates, click-to rates and such. And then of course you want to track how many appointments are being made with your sales team. Hopefully if they can be made online, great. But otherwise, if they can track them all in one place, all the better. So, and I know when it comes to CRM tracking and some intense capabilities, I know Erin will dig into that more. So we'll pass to her in just a minute.
Great. Casey, thank you so much. And just as Casey said, Erin, gonna pass the baton to you to take us into our next area of content, and hopefully it's clicking for you. Hold on, let me see. All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I know what we're thinking. It's a lot of, there's a lot of work that goes into nurturing a prospect, a lot of tools. And what I'm here to talk about is really how does sales assist in this process? Because without sales, we can't move them forward to a sale. So it's really sales responsibility to take everything marketing is doing and convert. So first and foremost, I like to talk about lead capture. I think sometimes when we're thinking about the whole process, we spend a lot of time on lead gen and a lot of time on lead nurturing, but there's this cog kind of in the middle called lead capture. And you can't nurture things you aren't capturing. And you can't measure any lead gen tactics if you're not capturing it and nurturing it and following it through the process. And so we've been releasing reports during 2020 every month on all of the different care levels. And what we have come to find out that even in this pandemic, web forms are up from 2019. That means people are still submitting or submitting more so online than ever before. So they're still online, they're still researching, they're getting content, and they're submitting a contact me form, which means, yes, please contact me. I'm not just filling this out for fun. And I think Casey said it best on the first slide. You know, we sometimes think that these web forms won't convert as well as someone who might call us. But the thing is, we just might have to work a little bit harder to get them on the phone and to convert them to an on-site visit or virtual visit. But they did ask to be contacted, so we have to remember that. So first and foremost, I would suggest having a good lead capture plan. So that includes, you know, what are your expectations for turnaround time for your sales team? That the person who gets back first is more likely to get the sale. We know this. It's just one of those things. And I will say that I did have a client that had 2 communities really close by, and someone had put in a web form to both, and one called back right away within an hour, and the other had waited. And she noticed in CRM that they had booked a tour with one, but not the other, and they're very close by. And so she showed up at the tour, and she was talking to him, and it was an adult child, and she said, you know, why weren't you visiting this other community of ours? And he said, you know, by the time I got calls back, I already had 3 visits scheduled, and you know, that was a lot for me. So I was good at that point. So I think we just need to keep in mind that converting that or getting a voice to voice or getting something back quickly is important. And I will say that you can also use marketing automation to really personalize. You can personalize that automated experience using variables with their first name, where instead of sending an email back that just says, hey, we got your web form, we'll be in touch soon, send a message from the sales director using those variables in your email that actually looks that it's coming from them. So you can really do a lot with marketing automation. You can really customize it. Also, missed calls. We mentioned call tracking numbers. Those are very important. And in a lot of call tracking numbers, you can actually email that call recording to the sales team. And so have a plan for how missed calls are handled, and also make sure that everything is populated directly into CRM, because it does happen where if it's not populated directly, that it won't get into CRM, and then we're truly not measuring. Whoops. So along with this, marketing automation has been capturing a lot of information about the lead. So once they submit a form, it de-anonymizes all the things that they've done on your website. So this is just an example of a workflow that you can have happen after someone submits a form. And so this also does not need to be done by the sales team, which saves them a ton of steps. So if there's a form submit, you may enter them into an inquiry onboarding campaign. Like Casey said, that you're introducing them to your community, and you can text message or email, and then you want to make sure you're posting all the information about the contact that they're interacting with your marketing into CRM. This really helps the sales team understand their path. You can post what web pages they've viewed. You can post what emails they've received from marketing, even though sales may not be in the know. And you can also pass any type of clicks or opens that they're doing. And so this is all important, and it really marries sales and marketing together, because before I would say, marketing's over here doing their thing and sales is over here, and it really is a team effort. And I'll get into why it's so important to put information in the CRM to let marketing know things that are happening during that sale. The other thing we can do with form submit is append social, financial, demographic data. If you're not doing this in your CRM, it's very important, because sometimes we just get an email address and it says Erin Hayes, Erin.Hayes@inquiresolutions.com, and it may not seem like a real request to your sales team. But if we're populating my picture from LinkedIn, my profile, my Twitter bio that says I'm a mommy, I'm a wino, I'm a golfer, now I have a little bit more substance to Erin Hayes as a person. So that's also something important that you can push into CRM. And then we also want to be updating the sales team of marketing activities that they take after they've inquired, so ongoing. So the importance of CRM. So we know that sales teams by nature do not like data entry, but it's really important to explain the importance of updating. I say two things. Sales is responsible for qualifying that lead. So marketing is pushing us leads, our people are inquiring, and we're responsible to update CRM to qualify, so we know what marketing tactics are working and which are not. Same with content. And we are also responsible for updating outcomes. This is because we want to know not only how many leads did we generate, but we want to know how many of those toured and how many of those deposited and how many moved in. And the only way we know that is connecting our lead gen efforts with CRM, because marketing automation won't necessarily know those things unless sales is responsible for putting those in. I talked a little bit about CRM can receive the notification from all these digital activities, which also will help them craft the sale. If they download content on a specific objection, then the sales team knows, okay, I need to focus on that. And I want to talk a little bit about objections because it's a really good example. If you should have a drop down or something in CRM that a salesperson can put in an objection during a sale. We do this, we use our own CRM and marketing automation, because you can do a few things with that. First and foremost, you can run a report and you can see what are the biggest objections, and then give it to marketing, and marketing can produce content that would overcome those objections. So that's number one. Number two is we can prompt marketing automation based on objections. So if you're talking to someone and their concern is their apartment size, you can select that in CRM, and marketing can already have a workflow set up that gives them information about your services where you help downsize and also help maybe with cost, and a little bit more, maybe an article on how to better set up your apartment for more space or something that would appeal to them. So you can really then personalize that whole series to them. So, and I would say objections, and if you don't have this book, I have it on my, this book on objections is great. And overcoming objections is hard enough for a salesperson, but if you have marketing involved, you can also give them the content that's available if they need to send it just one-off. So it's on there. And also we know then people are probably Googling it as well, which I think Clara mentioned, is that they're Googling these terms and we want our content to come up so we're a resource for them. And same thing with interest, have something that classifies their interest because we can prompt content off of that. And I also want to mention that marketing automation can be used for referral sources because Casey, you mentioned making big life decisions. And I think that that's, when have you made a big decision about maybe, and let me just go back a slide. Sorry. Casey mentioned that, you know, when you make a big life decision, you're probably going to consult with others. And I think that that's a big thing to keep in mind. Once they become a resident, you can continue to use marketing automation to nurture them and referral sources, because when have you, you know, found a new pediatrician for your kids and not asked someone who you know has one about that? You just do. So, you know, I think lastly, I just want to end with the benefits of marketing automation. And I think this is a really important slide to share with your sales team, because the more information sales can put into the CRM, the more marketing can help with their sales cycle. And as Joan will talk about, shortening the sales cycle, more conversions. And so we have done studies where we know that marketing automation, or MAP, can drive upwards of 20% more inquiries for your community. So if you want to know how that affects your bottom line and your move-ins, just back into that, you know, add 20% more inquiries, use your conversion rates, and do the math, and you'll realize that it's 1 or 2 more move-ins a month, and that's huge. It also gives sales teams more tools to be effective in their sale. Information, knowledge is power. We know this. The more, I don't know any sale I've gone into where I haven't researched ahead of time who I'm talking to. I know if they have kids. I want to personally connect with them, and a lot of this information allows us to do that. It also automates sales process and saves time, which sales team members love, and it decreases the cost per lead. So Clara mentioned how it will facilitate more organic leads, and that really does reduce those paid referrals you're paying for, pay-per-click, all the costs, direct mail. If you're cultivating online and a digital presence and you're generating more organic leads, it's going to definitely decrease that cost. And so this is just a little community performance, and you can see that even during 2020, those communities using marketing automation are faring better when it comes to inquiries.
Erin, thank you. And I would also, I think you talked about sharing this with, you know, with others in your organization. The CFO and the CEO will probably have their ears perk up when we talk about reducing costs and increasing efficiency. So absolutely another great audience for being able to have these conversations.
And it's really hard, I will say, to measure that. I mean, when you go into budget season and you're trying to figure out what is my cost per lead, the only way you can really get that information is if your marketing, your lead gen is integrated with CRM, and in, you know, the CRM, you should be able to put your budget and your actuals in there and align that with move-ins, because if you don't have that, then you're just guessing. And so when you go to the table with a CFO or CEO and you have your report and you say, here's the leads that came from pay-per-click and here's how those converted, you have a lot more data there to be able to say, this is where we should focus our dollars. And so that's huge. And we're not just going off of feeling, you know, we feel like this works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where that source tracking that digital lets you do, like, absolutely leverage it. You're going to learn so much from it.
Absolutely. Well, great. Well, Joan, why don't you kind of take us home here? And now that we've brought our leads all the way through the point of qualifying them as an SQL, How do we close the deal?
Okay, well, that was amazing. Let's step back. We were talking about funnels earlier and how everybody is qualified. And what I would suggest is that we all agree to think of the funnel as what it is. It's really a decision cycle. That's what we're working with, a decision cycle from being a lead all the way through the decision cycle to become one of our customers, one of our newest residents, or maybe it's a member. A marketing qualified lead is someone that is not ready to buy, but is responsive to strategic nurturing. And we understood at the beginning of our conversation today what the funnel and all that was about. So we thought it was a good way to end understanding what it means to be sales qualified. So it's nice to be responsive to strategic nurturing, but we learned that in a digital funnel that happens sooner and that it's customized and it moves the person to a quicker decision. So now they've become sales qualified. What does that mean? As I said, they're further in the cycle. They match our buyer persona because all of the information that we learned through this iterative process of lead generating and nurturing online helps us identify what matters most to the prospect. And so when they show up, we're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for us more of the time. They are effectively pre-screened. They've also done some self-selecting out of other options. So they've done their shopping around a little bit and they show up kind of knowing where they want to be. Now is the time to connect. It's important to connect whether it's virtual or in person. And it's what Erin was talking about timeliness. And that's critical. Timely contact and follow-up matters. Timing matters more than anything in a digital file, in a digital cycle. So these are decision transitions that we're talking about. And let's summarize it even further. A marketing qualified lead knows they want to make a change. A sales qualified lead, however, knows that your community is where that change may happen. That's huge when they've arrived at that decision through everything we just learned about. And that's why, as Erin said, it's critical that the marketing team and the sales team communicate and that it's done in a timely way. And a book that I would push is Grit by Angela Duckworth. And what grit is perseverance and passion together. And that's what we need. We need that between the marketing and the sales team, between the CRM and what's happening out in the digital world, between all of us together. And that's all foundational to our success.
Well, excellent. Well, I will go ahead and close out the formal part of our presentation here with just going over a few key takeaways because there's been a huge amount of great content that all of our panelists have shared. Just as a reminder, we're seeing some questions that are coming up in the question box, but if you have questions, you can go ahead and add those in there. But let me just take a moment to talk about our key takeaways. And again, as a reminder, we will be sending out the recording of this so you can go back and kind of digest it again. But the key takeaways really from our talk today are our audience is now online more than ever before. And so there's a huge opportunity to adjust that, how we're engaging with leads. The senior living sales cycle, it's now circular. There's many entry points. People are going to bounce around from different parts instead of just moving very linear through the process as they used to. Marketing automation, incredibly powerful opportunity here. Helps warm up, educate prospects. It enables the sales team to focus their activities on nurturing those sales qualified leads, really engaging in revenue generating activities. But marketing automation does not replace that personal connection that's necessary to close a sale in our field. I loved what Clara had said about there's no add to cart, in the online world for our field. Nurturing content, the content that you develop to nurture leads, that is going to brand your community or organization. It enables you to tailor that communication, engage, connect with those leads, really give them control over how fast they learn and how fast they get to the point where they are confident in making a decision. Lead capture, speed to lead, and data tracking, incredibly critical to not only know what's the best way to nurture those leads, but also to be able to have that common language with the people who control the purse strings. Just as we talked about a moment, it gives you the power to be able to justify what your budget needs to be in order to ultimately impact the bottom line. And finally, marketing automation, as I was just saying, it increases your inquiries, it decreases your cost per lead. It's a hugely valuable investment. And frankly, in today's world, an organization that's not competing in the digital realm is absolutely losing out on opportunities to competitors. So hopefully that kind of helped bring all of that information to a close there. And I want to again thank all of these incredible women who brought their expertise in putting together this incredible webinar. And we'll just go ahead and take any questions that we have. Go ahead and kind of look in our chat here. And let me go in and look. Okay, I am seeing a question. Clara, question for you. We talked about the importance of, oh, let's see, it jumped on me. Talked about the importance of forms on websites. So what fields should I have? And should I make certain fields like phone number mandatory? And if no, why can't I make them mandatory? So multiple part question there.
Okay, that's a really good question. And to some degree, obviously the answer is going to be, it depends. But at base, it's important to know that the fewer fields you have, the higher chance there is to convert. Think about any website you've been on and you want to reach out to someone for contact, and suddenly they're asking you, where did you hear about us? And give me your full phone number and your full address. And you're like, whoa, this is a little overwhelming. I just wanted to know how much, it was going to cost to get an estimate for my roof. Like, this is a bit much. So whenever possible, minimize what you're asking for. We like to, for required fields, typically if it's a first touch, mandatory name, mandatory email, and that mandatory name also then gives you that content to those like custom variables like Erin was mentioning, where you can say, hey, Joan, I'm excited to talk to you. Phone number, always have it there, but don't make it mandatory unless there's a really critical reason. Like if you absolutely need to confirm an RSVP for something by phone, then maybe make it mandatory. The last time I did an audit across a number of our clients, even with an optional phone field, 60 to 75% of people were still giving it. So you're not necessarily missing out if you give them the option. If you make it mandatory and no one wants to talk to you, you're getting a fake number. That's just kind of what's going to happen, and that wastes everyone's time. And so yeah, those are typically the fields. Again, always have that comment field. You're going to get so much in it. Very rarely do we actually add the address field unless there's a critical need. And sometimes people really want us to have their address and they will put it in there. So, I mean, put it in the prospect's hands to give you as much or as little as they're willing to, and just kind of let them control that. When they're warmed up, they'll give you more, but don't ask for too much out the gate. Data appends can be a great way to get some of that info on the back end if they're not giving it to you just yet, to just at least educate you, but just don't ask for too much and you'll be a little surprised by how much warmer and receptive people are to giving it.
Great. Well, Clara, thank you. Well, so we have another question here. It's kind of open. What can and should communities do next? This presentation had been great, but I'm overwhelmed, which I totally understand. So what should I do next? If I only do one or two things, what would you recommend? So that's open to any of our panelists.
I have one off the top of my head. A lot of what you've been hearing about, especially with the success stories that Lisa shared at the beginning, events, online events, webinars, the ability to then attend them and then do some sort of deposit online. If you're having events, please, 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 please post them online. Like if your website isn't capable of that, talk to your web dev, get some sort of system in place, post them on Facebook as an interim if you need to, but post your events online. Everyone's looking for something to join. It's a really great way to kind of start to humanize your community, get them to introduce to your counselors. Like it's critical, and it's very often going to be the first step that someone actually takes a little deeper into the pool to be introduced to. So events online, Facebook, website, you won't regret
Lisa,
it.
Great.
Lisa, I would suggest too, to practice the online event that Claire is talking about, that it's really easy and it becomes very comfortable very quickly. And then you're prepared to do them as one-to-one virtual appointments. And the other thing I would suggest, and maybe Casey could speak to this, are video in email. We tend to really connect with each other a lot more when we can see each other. And we're seeing a lot of success having video that's embedded in the email.
Absolutely. I think that's an awesome point for sure. And you know, that also just speaks to the entire objective of breaking down the barriers to make sure that the sales team is more and more approachable as they continue that learning phase. And when you have a video and an email, it does make them that much more approachable. They now have a face, a name, and a voice. And you know, even if it's still 3-4 weeks before they connect, it's slowly breaking down that barrier. I think that's critical.
And I would say there's two things that you need to do. One thing you need to do right now, and when someone submits a web form, get rid of that email that says, "We will get back to you soon." No, those are going away. You can incorporate video, have it say, "Hi, Erin, thank you so much. I'm so-and-so, this sales director. I'm going to be reaching out to you. In the meantime, here's a video just introducing myself." Something that's a little bit more personal, but the whole "I'm going to get back to you" email, it's just junk mail to them. It doesn't have any substance. And so I would get rid of that. And then as far as marketing automation for the lead nurturing, the first step I always say is put together your new inquiry campaign or an onboarding campaign. So whether they're coming in from a digital web form or they're calling your sales team and they're entering them in CRM and they're getting their email address, hopefully always, they're going into kind of this gradual campaign, which is introducing them and giving them information, because you'll learn a lot based on what they're clicking on. You'll learn a lot if they're opening. You'll learn that will tell you if your subject lines are good, if the links you're including. I mean, it tells you so much information, and you can always put in a goal. So you can opt them out of this campaign if they tour or if they give a deposit. So there's ways to get them, to suppress them from that. But that first campaign, have a series of emails, maybe asking for a virtual tour, but that is what I would recommend as kind of step one, because it'll get all your content together and then you can use it in different things.
Yeah, and Erin, I'm glad you pointed that out about the message on that kind of, confirmation that we got your form. It's always good to be able to give them something, instant gratification. I know my middle schoolers absolutely have to have everything on instant gratification, but every generation does, so being able to, it's really, giving them an inducement in exchange for providing their email to start with that drip. And that could be as simple as a PDF of some information from your brochure. In addition to, that thank you video, instead of just a message embedded in that email that they get as soon as they click submit.
It also makes that good.
That's a great point, because not only is there an email that can go out, but often when you click to submit, you can either have a new page pop up or kind of that what happens when they click. You can actually have a message, "Hey, Erin Hayes will be getting back to you shortly. In the meantime, do that." And it's right there, and you can just program that in instead of being like, "We received your message. Well, you'll get an email."
Right. Claire, what were we gonna add?
I think that's also just a critical component. Always have a next step. Always, 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 whether it's an email or a website or a web form or a text or like that call to action, that next step. All right, you've done this one thing, but here's 3 other things for you to do. Like that's kind of what the entire nurturing is about. Like, let's use that to continue them down the path. Never send something that doesn't tell them what they should be doing next. Like make it a thoughtful next step or a thoughtful number of next steps, but there shouldn't just be like, "Hey, we got your email," and no one has any suggestions of what they should do. Like, here's related blogs, here's visit us on social, hey, go, visit this 3D tour that we just put up. Always in all of your digital content, have a thoughtful next step or three to keep someone moving through the system.
Yeah, I just want to add in kind of the most basic terms too. If, when it comes to what is my next step, I would say create the content. Like, that is going to be the very next best thing you can do. Do you have a page right now, be it a blog page or just a standard extension URL that is frequently asked questions? And do you have pages then that build that out even more, that talk, that page might have like a snippet that explains, your service package, but perhaps there's also a longer blog post that explains it in more detail. So just the first step is really create that content and put it on a URL. That's what I think is important. And just to go to what Erin was saying, those clicks are where you learn. And so I see a lot of people who create an automated series and they have just this wealth of information in the body of an email. And that's okay, but that doesn't mutually serve you and the end user. So you want to make sure that you're building in opportunities to learn. So don't just put everything in there, say click here to learn more about, and click here to learn more about. So that as that person is opening emails and engaging with your content, you're learning about what they want. So, create the content is definitely the first step I would take, and just make sure that is on a URL that you can track.
Great. So we have another question here that frankly I think is one of my favorite questions that we've seen so far. It says, if we do marketing automation, does that mean our sales team needs to make fewer calls? What does that mean in terms of the number of prospects that we need at the top of the funnel? There's almost kind of two questions there. So the one about, does our sales team need to make fewer calls if we're doing a marketing automation? So Joan, that might be a question for you.
Sure. Well, it's still a numbers game, and we still need to keep focused on that grit that I talked about earlier, about being consistent and persistent and accurate, and putting what we put into the CRM. That means we can spend some of our time planning. And the big difference in time management and contact management with a digital campaign is in the planning, is in the thinking. We have to stop and think about what we're going to say before we say it. So we have all of this information, we know where the source is. So what does that say about where that person is already at? We need to go where they are. And that may mean we talk to less people. It depends on how well we plan our calls. It depends on how well we take advantage of the information that all of this gives us. If we plan well, we should close more. We should see people call us back more. That means we get more call-ins and we have to make less call-outs. Mm-hmm. So like Clara said earlier, some of it depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I think it also makes a call more intentional because salespeople know more about how to kind of craft the messaging. So I think Joan is 100% correct. We, let's say they go on your website, CRM tells you, oh, Joan is on our floor plan page for this. Well, we can pop something to sales, and when you think about it, as you can say, hey, I was just thinking about you, knowing that they were on your website. I mean, you don't have to be so, I've been tracking what you're doing, but it does help, make that touch a little bit more. And also the salesperson feels a little bit more comfortable making that call because they know that they're engaging. So, and sorry, I think a F-150 just flew over my house because I'm in a fly zone.
I don't think you heard that, which is good. Yeah, and I totally agree with Joan and Erin, what you're both saying. And I think, a key thing that we've seen over the last few years, even before COVID happened, is that sales team members were finding they had to pick up the phone so many more times to actually have a voice-to-voice conversation, to actually, be able to connect with someone. And one of the exciting things about all of this with the marketing automation is it helps, it helps not only make it feel less like a cold call, which is kind of, Erin, what you were just saying, but it means that the sales team has to make less has to work less hard to actually make those meaningful conversations, because it's those contacts that drive the appointments, and it's the appointments that drive the sales. So I think,
Lisa, this is the literal definition of working smarter, not harder.
yes, exactly. That crossed my mind as well. So here's another part of this question. It says, what does that mean in terms of the number of prospects that we need at the top of the funnel? And I actually want to speak to this a little bit, and then everyone else can talk about this. So different lead sources do close at different rates. You know, you may look overall and say, okay, here's how many total leads I have, and here's how many sales I made, so here's what my closing rate is. But all of your different lead sources in a proper Confluent marketing campaign, they're going to close at different rates and different speeds. It doesn't mean that let's pour all of our efforts into the one source that closes the best or has the lowest cost per lead. You know, there's that adage of the rising tide lifts all ships. You know, so your digital is critical. You know, direct mail still is a workhorse in a number of ways and has a really important role in marketing senior living. In some markets, traditional advertising and good old newspaper still has an impact. And then, of course, referrals, word of mouth. That is a bread and butter of a lot of community successful programs, which might have a low cost, but it's high manpower. You know, so all of those pieces are important. Now, with digital, it is a much lower cost per lead. With doing, say, a pay per click, you should expect to see more people at that top of the funnel. But again, overall from your marketing program, it's going to help bring more people into that funnel. It's going to speed your closing rates, and layering in a proper digital and content marketing program is overall going to reduce your cost per lead. So, so the short version is yes, but there's some qualifying aspect to that. So I don't know if any of the other panelists want to speak to that as well. Clara?
And I think that's where, when I was talking about the organic entry, that's one of the things that digital leads can have that you're not going to get from other sources. You can't have an organic billboard referral. Like, it just doesn't work that way. All of these efforts that you're going to be doing to strengthen your online presence, to make sure you're doing reputation management and have good reviews, to do the cross-linking with your partners in the community, it's going to increase your Google quality score. It's going to increase the chance of you showing up in search results. When you're doing what Casey says with your blogs and being that resource and putting yourself out there, you're going to rise in what people are searching for. So you might have a lower cost per lead. You might need more leads in your top of funnel. But if you're doing all of this well outside of the time to create this content, you're going to get a lot of free leads. Like, this is going to be leads that once you're doing this well and it's kind of up and running, these people are just going to find you. They're going to be in your area. You're going to start showing up higher on search results. You're going to be cross-linking and other people are going to be linking to you. You're going to be asking that news source who is doing the report on your new expansion to also link to your website. Remember, cross-linking. So you're going to be getting a lot of leads kind of for free that you wouldn't be through your other sources. So while you might have to have a larger group of digital leads to ultimately see your conversions, there's a lot of them you're not paying for, and a lot of them that are going to be putting themselves through that nurture process you have set up to land in your lap that you maybe never actually directly marketed to.
Yeah, and I want to address one other type of lead, the type of leads that come in from social. The type of leads that come in from social are oftentimes, you know, that's a stretch. I don't want to say oftentimes, but I would say there are times when they are not only not familiar with your community, but they're not familiar with your product. And so you are educating them from a whole other level. And that's where it comes back to when it talks about when we talk about the source and identifying that. If someone comes in from social, pay attention to what the ad said and what that ad promised. And if it was discussing, you know, a specific type of education or a specific type of lifestyle, that's then what they need to carry them through the rest of the communication funnel, because they came in on that. And there are times, especially when it comes to Facebook, you might see something in your feed, and I'm sure we've all experienced it. I joke quite frequently that I keep Instagram advertisers alive and thriving single-handedly. So I think a lot of us have had those moments where we've actually discovered a product through social advertising. And so if someone comes in through a Facebook source versus a Google source, they are likely to need much more education at that top than someone who might come in from Google, because they actually went to Google and searched for either a term or your product or something, as opposed to someone who just discovered you.
All right. And anyone else on that topic? We got a few more questions in here. Okay, so this is a kind of a quick one to answer. A couple books were referenced. Can you say again the book titles and authors? Erin, I know you had a book reference.
Oh, I have it. It's Jeb Blount, Objections, and read this one too. He just came out. Yeah, he just came out with virtual selling in a virtual world. Something I'm on the list to get it when it comes out. You can get it on Amazon, but where you can get everything. But yeah, these are just great. I think they're really good to give to your sales teams. I give them to all mine. I have the box set. So there's ones on selling socially, which is a huge, thing, or people follow you. So I would definitely recommend Jeb. He's great. Any industry.
Right. Joan?
Yeah, I referenced Angela Duckworth. She's a professor at Penn in Philly, and her book is Grit. And for those of you in the audience that were at Leading Age several years ago in Boston, she spoke there, I believe, as a keynote. I think it was in Boston. But it's about grit, and it's about being positive, being optimistic, and persevering. And we know we all have passion for what we do. We know we all have thick skin. And so we kind of come pre-screened with grit, but sometimes it helps to read about how it works and to know that it's the right way to be and it's the right way to proceed. We need it. We need grit.
Good. Okay, so here's another question. How do you address the scenario of a community that also has an at-home program? Certainly we're working with organizations that are doing that, and it's becoming much, I think during this COVID thing, much more of something that our audiences are thinking about and considering. So I don't know if any of our panelists want to say a few things about at-home programs.
I'm happy to do so, Lisa. I've worked with many at-home programs. I think that it's a model that is really important and needs to be recognized as important. Usually, the prospect is a different prospect than is interested in the brick and mortar products that we talk about. And so they're not cannibalizing each other and they're not in competition. They're entirely different. The products that we work with, the continuing care at home programs that we work with, also use digital programs, and they're necessary in all the same ways that we talked about today. The content would be different, the actual details obviously would be different, but these are going to be important to that audience just as they are to a brick and mortar audience.
We definitely want to make sure they're segmented out. Assuming you're a community that has a CCH program in addition to like a full continuum, you don't want to be conflating the two. Not only are they completely different prospects, but it's going to be super off-putting and confusing to your prospect who filled out a web form because they want your at-home program to then be getting info about your IL and all of your on-site community services. So make sure you're segmenting, and this is one of those things where tagging is really useful. And then I would say if it's already part of your main website, and this is going to be dependent on everyone, but like look at your Google Analytics and see if people are actually finding that page. Are they searching for your at-home program and accidentally landing on something else? Are they searching for it and landing on your website and immediately bouncing? Does that mean also they don't like having the IL and the AL and the health services on the same page? If that's the case, you might actually want to consider building a microsite to house all of your at-home services over to the side instead. But that's something that all of that information, especially Google Analytics, all of that tracking data can help you find out. If people are very successfully searching the term and landing there and staying on the page, you're good. Just make sure you're segmenting that form. If people are searching that, landing on your page and immediately leaving, that probably means that there's some issue with how it's laid out, where the information is, or that you're not effectively kind of breaking out the capture for that IL prospect versus that at-home prospect versus the adult child for AL. So always lean on your metrics, look at them, make changes as needed, because you can't just hope it's eventually going to work itself out, because especially as people are doing more searches and, you know, the longer time people go down that road, the harder it is to kind of backpedal.
So here's another question that it says, can you explain how white pages work? And I'm almost wondering whether it might mean white papers. It says, how can we use these towards our goal to market more online? So I'm going to go with maybe assuming that that actually means white papers, which in our world would be really an inducement, you know, something that is going to be content that helps a person with their research. You know, so it may be something like, you know, it may be a topic of, you know, what are my options if I'm looking at senior living? You know, if I'm a caregiver, how do I know if a parent, you know, might need memory support? So that type of almost kind of public service announcement or public service type information. And, you know, I would say that they're when I was talking earlier about an inducement, you know, when someone might be searching and Googling, and you serve up your text ad in Google search, or even an ad, you know, a banner ad, image ad somewhere, that they click on it, they get to a landing page that talks about that topic and says, if you want to learn more, provide your name and your email address, click here, and you will receive a white paper. So it becomes much more of an opportunity to start to educate, inform, engage, establish your brand as that resource for good, solid, you know, reliable information. And so it's not simply about serving them up with information that's self-serving to you. It's how do you start to make that connection with them that ultimately may mean that they then start to want more information about your organization. So, so I'll just see if any of our other panelists have anything to add to that.
Just in case in case it wasn't white paper, and in case White Page thinks what I think it might mean, I would look up citation bursts. They kind of get you into online listings and affinity listings. You pay money, it's not too big a lift. You want to make sure when you're doing citation bursts that your phone number is the same across pretty much all of your web entities. This is not a time to be using tracking numbers. That your address is the same across all of it, because then it spiders out into other lists. And the one other potential I can think of for white paper or white pages, and Erin, I think you might know more about this than I do, is kind of referral sites like A Place for Mom. Like, should I be doing these? What sort of costs are involved? They are exceptionally expensive. What you do get behind them, though, is they have very, very high pull for SEO. Like, if you don't have a great web presence and your website isn't doing super well, or you don't update it often, or your social presence isn't good, being part of those referral programs actually gets you really high up in Google listings, which can be a great way to kind of kickstart your online presence while you kind of build up the rest of your digital presence. So just in case, that's maybe what people meant by white pages. They are worthwhile. If you have a really strong web presence, you probably can slowly peel back on the referrals, like A Place for Mom and Seniorly. But if you're kind of in that place of like, I don't know where to start, we've kind of been neglecting this for a while, our site isn't even responsive, they can be a really great way to rise you up in the rankings.
So a couple more questions, trying to keep an eye on time. We got about 5 minutes. So there is another one, great content. Thank you. We appreciate that feedback. What about selling against COVID as an objection? Joan, do you want to, or Erin?
I'll jump in with one, because I actually have a couple of answers to this prep, because it's something that we've had to address with a number of our clients, and I think we've done so pretty successfully. You know, I think it really does come down to highlighting the value of your community. One thing that we have found is that when we really communicate the security, the safety measures, the value of making sure that everything you need is right here, you have social contact in a way that you don't otherwise, and you have a community of people looking out for you. And I think that there are ways to lean into those benefits. And obviously there are a number of different objections, specifically financially. I know there are a lot of people who might be shaky on, okay, well, is this the best time to make such a move financially? that I can't really speak in too much more. I can't serve two masters. But on the other side of that, there is the side of the value that your community can bring to their quality of life and the security. And I think that's a huge opportunity to discuss.
Lisa, I would agree with Casey on that. I think that this takes us down the realm of how the salesperson does discovery, because I think more than ever, empathy and genuineness and transparency is called for. And I think that when we speak with our prospects, it's critical during a time like we're all going through right now, that we affirm what is most important to them, that it should be about them. It should be about what matters most to them, what makes them happiest, and why they want to even talk to us. If we can't determine why they're on the phone with us, then I think that we need to step back and figure that out. When we do that, we can do what Casey said about establishing value, because we have to match the value of making this change now or at any time with the value they see of what matters most to them already. It has to have more value for them to make a change. And yes, there are ways that we can do it. And you mentioned Blue Skies, Pennyburn, Baldwin, places all over the country are doing fine work during this time to make that happen.
Yeah, and I know we're getting, and Joan, I know you've done this a few times. We've got communities that are asking this question about, how do I pivot, with the impacts of COVID, and how do I speak differently to, how do I help my sales team fine tune their selling skills in this time of COVID? So that's something that Joan and her other colleagues on our team are doing a lot of that right now. Erin, did you have another thing you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just, I did another webinar with some operations and sales leaders and the industry providers, and I think it's a really good time to engage operations with sales as well and give them the sales the tools. I know that some clients did, if they had to quarantine for 14 days of fun, and they put out videos. They had, one of our clients had a mask contest. I think there's some things that that operations can also help with resident engagement, and testimonials are huge. Maybe loved ones giving a video testimonial of, how they've kept their family members safe or whatever it might be. I think that it's a really good time to come up with some content to just make people feel comfortable, and operations can play a big role in that as well, because, everyone's in sales. When someone comes to a building or comes to virtually tour, operations is a big part of that. Even, the chef or whomever. So I think that it's important to highlight the things that you're doing, despite everything, that's happening, to make it feel and look more authentic. So I was just going to add that in. Operations really helps with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So it's just about at the end of our time here. One other topic, I'll go ahead and throw it out there for any comments. Someone had posted that they have a community that just opened right before the pandemic hit. They had quite a few depositors that have canceled or decided to wait. And so it's been this slow process rebuilding our pipeline. We're not as big as our local competitors or have the budgets that they have either. Do you have insight or advice that could help us be more effective, that would drive results and help us be efficient with our limited budget? So kind of a big overall question. So I don't know if, but probably one that's burning in the minds of a number of people who may be listening today. So any final words from any of our panelists on that topic?
I'd say the first step is look at the internal resources you have. Like, obviously it can really help to engage with an external agency to help create, blog planning and content posting, and hire a photographer to come on site and do a new photo shoot. But it sounds like you can't do that right now. So what do you have? Do you have a sales coordinator who has a little bit of experience with social media and has extra time that they can start to plan out regular social posts? Do you have a backlog of really good photography that maybe you used during your initial collateral that you're not really leveraging out there to let people know what your community looks like? Do you have an info kit that you've been mailing out but haven't been made available online for people to request? Look at all the assets you currently have, because you probably have more than you think you do, and look at how many different platforms you can leverage them across, but do it with a plan. Do it strategically, going, all right, we are going to put out 3 different blog posts this month, and they're going to be about this topic, this topic, this topic. They're going to be supported by online social posts on this topic, this topic, this topic. We're going to look at our SEO, and we're going to make sure that we are maximizing the keywords on the website right now, because we know that that's going to be a slow build. When you don't have a lot of money behind you, you can still plan, you can still set things up. Hopefully you're on an email service provider. If you're not, it's not great to have a free badge on your account, but there's a number of providers out there that give you a free account for up to 2,000 contacts. So there's a lot of like small incremental steps you can do now, and then you can build your wish list of things you're going to want to do later when you have a bigger list. Also, are you actually getting people's email addresses and permission to market to them? If that's not something you're doing, start doing it now. Just a low ask. When people are calling, are you capturing their email information and asking if you can market to them? There's stuff that you can do even with a small budget that's going to set you up for success down the road when you do have a bigger one, when you can kind of get more traction.
And I would add too that, and absolutely, Clara, what you said, I would add too that a lot of times we see communities that the salespeople, the outreach people, the passion is there, you know, the belief in what they're selling and the benefit they're providing, but they're just kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. You know, so having a system, you know, beyond a set of Post-it notes or an Excel spreadsheet, having a system like an Enquire, a powerful CRM that is going to help you capture that data, measure your results, and not just on your lead generation, but identifying how are things working through that funnel, you know, so that you can identify what's working, what's not. How do I need to make a tune-up with some area of our whole marketing and sales process to make sure it's performing optimally? And you know, the other part, in addition to capturing that data and being able to measure it, is you know, even the most skilled sales team members can always use that coach. You know, that it's kind of the adage of even the professional athletes always have a coach to help them improve their golf swing or improve their, you know, batting swing, something to that level. And so that being able to really look at what your sales processes are and the way your team is operating and the things they're saying and how they're doing discovery, all of those things are really critical ways that just adjusting that dial just a little bit can have such incredible impact down funnel with your marketing and sales program. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to add there.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple notes about the, you know, the opportunities for retention, right? To make sure that we don't lose any more. And I think that there are a couple ways to do that. As Clara was saying, you know, make sure that you can communicate with people by email, keep your social pretty rich. And I would maybe even consider starting a Facebook group specifically for depositors so that they have some type of place to begin to build that community, perhaps, because keeping them engaged and keeping them excited about the community is certainly a good way to make sure that they don't fall off and they don't kind of take away their deposit or put it on hold. So I would look into ways to retain the people that you currently have and to really engage those individuals. Also, as Clara was saying, I think in some way to make sure every single page on your website is working for you. Make sure every page has a form and a phone number. I always say that form ideally is above the fold so that they see it right away that there's an opportunity to jump into your email universe. And that would make it so that, you know, anytime they visit your site, that's not a lost opportunity. You want to make sure that anytime they visit, they have an opportunity to connect.
And that personal touch that I think Erin was talking about, like video, you can shoot it on your phone. You can shoot it on your laptop. Like, video does not have to be this whole production with a white screen behind you and something on a tripod. It can be super, super impersonal, or well, personal, but like super unprofessional. We're so used to seeing those videos on social media, someone just standing in front of their camera. It doesn't have to be a huge production, and it can be a personal touch. It can be great to reach out to your existing depositors. It can be great to, like, reach out to the people who are just coming in. And if you have the time, you can shoot it person by person. You can make it absolutely custom to them. It doesn't have to be part of a drip series, but this is what everyone gets. You can just shoot, 30 seconds of, hey, really excited to talk to you when you're ready. You're going to be getting some content on X, Y, Z. And you can probably do that with material you already have at hand, and then upload it online, send it to someone, and it's a good start.
I
And
would
much
also
more
suggest
authentic.
that in the sales office, the salespeople can do a lot, excuse me, by going back to their leads, going back to depositors that may be backing down, and start where the prospect started. Go back to what was important to them to begin with, look at the information in the database, and start over with why this mattered months or years ago, and start over from that point again. Re-engage.
Erin, did you want to add?
No, I was just going to say, I think that what Clara was saying, it's much more authentic when you don't have a produced video. So I actually think they work better to do something that you're just shooting. Maybe you can use your Zoom also and do it right on your computer. So that's just another, or GoToMeeting, you can record your own session. And I know I did a lot of that during COVID with some of my clients, and I even had my kids in some of them. So I think that, authentic videos they really work. So.
And I think that's a key thing, that authenticity right now, is something that we are seeing resonate for communities in marketing and selling during this time of COVID. So I think that's a really good point. Well, I know we've actually gone past our 1:30 Eastern time stop, but I appreciate everyone, and we've had a number of people who stuck with us all the way through the Q&A discussion. So hopefully everyone found great value with this content. Again, we've recorded this. All registrants and participants will receive a link to the recording so that you can look at it again, share it with others in your organization, and certainly reach out if you have additional questions or want to dig deeper into some of these. We had an incredible number of questions that came in, and some hopefully we've provided some good insight. But if you want to dig deeper, please certainly reach out to any of us. I'm happy to have those conversations. And, again, we just, really appreciate everyone's joining us today. And Erin, and to all my colleagues here at Levin Company, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun and great, just great dynamic with the conversation as we covered this topic that's so critical today. Well, thank you, everybody, and take care and have a good rest of the week.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.